everyone, Janessa here from the blog almostheavenhomesteading.com, and today I want to show you how you can save some of your seeds from your summer garden so that you can cut down or maybe even avoid buying seeds for your summer garden next year. So let's dive into this. Now you really can save seeds from basically anything growing in your garden, but some things are going to be quite a bit easier. And that's going to be anything that has a seed growing in the vegetable or the fruit in the first year. That's going to be things like green beans or squash, zucchini, cucumbers, peppers, tomatoes, all of that I have right here, as well as some of those crops that come in the fall like pumpkins or butternut squash, or even some fruits like watermelon, honeydew, or cantaloupe. But then there's other things that are not really quite as easy to save, but are still quite possible. And those are those plants that seed in the second year. That would be something like a carrot or a cabbage, where you get the actual harvest the first year, and then if you let it overwinter, you get the seeds in the second year. We're not going to be diving into any of that today. We're going to be sticking with some of these easier summer veggies to harvest those seeds from. Specifically, that's going to be green beans, cucurbits, including squash, zucchini, and cucumbers, and then bell peppers and tomatoes. So I'm going to show you how you can harvest the seeds from each of these and save them over the winter so that you can plant them in your summer garden next year, and if you have enough, avoid buying seeds. Alright, so we're going to be starting with the easiest one today, and that is the bell pepper. This one is very, very simple. All you really need to do is cut the top off and remove that core and flesh inside that has the seeds attached to it. And then you want to just scrape those seeds off onto a ceramic plate and just let them dry for about 3, 4, 5 days until they're really, really dry and they are not stuck together, not stuck to the plate or anything like that. They just move around very easily and you can tell that they are perfectly dry. And then you're just going to package them in an airtight jar or a sandwich bag, something like that, and store these. These ones are so simple. You can do this method with any variety, including banana peppers, any kind of hot pepper, any kind of sweet pepper. Very, very simple, very easy to save these seeds. Alright, so saving those pepper seeds was definitely the easiest one that I'm going to show you today, but don't worry, none of these are difficult. The next one that we're going to be moving on to are the tomato, the cucumber, the zucchini, and the squash. And the reason why I'm kind of putting all of those together is because we're going to be using the same method on all 4 of these, which is a fermentation method of saving the seeds. That basically just involves scooping out the seeds and the pulp from the center of each of these veggies and submerging it in water for a few days and allowing that to ferment to kill off any bacteria and make those seeds more viable for germination. So we'll get started with this and I'll explain that process as we go along. So I'm just grabbing 4 clean mason jars and I'm starting with the tomatoes. I'm just going to cut them in half and then remove that little section where the stem was. And then I'm just going to scrape out those seeds and that pulp, any of that gel that is inside of the tomato, right into the mason jar. And then I'm just going to be repeating the process with the other 3 vegetables. So I'm doing cucumber here, just cutting that down the middle, and then I'm going to be scraping the seeds out of this one into a different mason jar, and doing the same thing with the squash and zucchini. The squash and zucchini are a little bit harder to get the seeds out, and I ended up with quite a bit more pulp in the jar than with the tomato and cucumber, but that's okay. That will all get rinsed away in the second step of this process. And with the squash and zucchini, I couldn't really just use my finger to scrape those seeds out. I really needed to use a knife to kind of cut the pulpy area out of those seeds, and I just went ahead and put that in the mason jar like that. So I'm going to continue getting the seeds out of these vegetables and then we'll pick back up from there. next step, I'm going to top those jars with my seeds off with just a little bit of water, just enough to cover the seeds, and then I'm going to cover them with a towel loosely and just let them set for 3 or 4 days, stirring them once or twice each day. And then after those 3 or 4 days, I'll be coming back and showing you how to finish off this process. Alright, now finally, the third type of seed we're going to be saving is our green bean seeds. This one takes the longest, but I would say requires less hands-on time than the fermentation method. So you're going to need to grab a needle and some sturdy thread and a pair of scissors, and grab a really long piece of thread and thread your needle and double it over and double tie it at the ends. Then we're going to grab our first bean and we're just going to thread it through the end of the bean, and we're going to knot this several times through that end just so it's sturdy to hold all of these beans that we're going to be putting on there. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do this. We're just going to grab that, we're going to slide that needle through the top, and then you're going to loop your needle through your bean several more times until you feel like it's not going to go anywhere. And then you're going to just start adding more and more beans until you have about a 12 to 18 inch string of beans. If you have more than that, you would want to get a new piece of thread just so you don't end up stringing too many beans on one and your thread would end up breaking. So just keep repeating that until you get to the end. And then once you're at the end, we're going to go back to that original bean and double this strand over and knot that several more times into that same bean and make a little loop. That way you can just hang this somewhere. If you didn't want to do that, that would be perfectly fine. You could just lay these somewhere and you wouldn't have to double it back over. Just knot it off on that end bean, and just any way that you want to hang these is fine. But I like to double it over and knot it on that first bean so that I can easily hang this strand. So I had already strung up some beans from a previous harvest about a month ago, and I actually already had some that looked pretty dry, so I wanted to show you what they'll look like. Once they are ready to go, the pod will turn brown and it'll be really crunchy and easy to just break apart. So you can just break it open and pull those bean seeds right out, and they would be ready to plant in the spring. Alright, so moving back to these fermented seeds, as you can see, I'm just giving these a stir. As I said, I would be doing every day for about 3 or 4 days, so I'm just giving these a stir, and then we will be checking back on these in about 3 or 4 days to finish this process. Before we get started back on those fermented seeds, I wanted to show you the pepper seeds after they have dried for about 4 or 5 days. As you can see, they're brown and they just slide right off of that plate very easily. So I'm just packaging those and labeling them with the year and the seed that they are, and just storing those until I'm ready to start peppers next spring. Alright, finally moving back to finish up all of these fermented seeds. Basically what we want to do here is get the seeds rinsed very thoroughly and then strained and onto a plate to dry. So the way that I like to do this is to first pick off any of the pulp and seeds that floated to the top. You know those seeds aren't going to be any good. You want the seeds that sink to the bottom. So go ahead and just remove the bulk of that, either with a spoon, or if it doesn't gross you out, just put your hand down in the jar and pick all of that off. And then you want to fill the jar with a little more water and really swish everything around very vigorously to clean it off. Then you're going to strain your seeds, and then you're going to put them back in the jar and swish them around with that cool water again, clean, cool water, for 3, 4, 5 times, however many times you think it takes to get all of that gel off of those seeds. And then strain them one final time and go ahead and put them on a ceramic plate to dry. These need to dry just like those pepper seeds do. So we're kind of just now getting to that phase where with the pepper seeds you could just get them on the plate, where with these ones we had to take all of those steps to get them onto the plate to dry for 3, 4, 5 days, however many days it takes. So just swish those around, strain them until they're really, really clean, and then go ahead and get them on the plate And always remember to pick those seeds off of the top, the ones that came to the top, because those are not good seeds. You only want to use the seeds that sank to the bottom. Alright, so I'm going to finish this process up and then we will pick back up when they are dry. Alright, so once again, it has been several days, but I wanted to check back in to show you what these seeds look like once they are dry. As you can see, just like the pepper seeds, they're not stuck to the plate or anything like that, or stuck to each other. They're nice and dry, and they're ready to be packaged in a Ziploc bag or an airtight jar until you are ready to plant them. So happy seed saving this late summer, early fall. I hope that you are able to save some of your seeds from your garden so that you can at least cut down on the seeds that you need to purchase next spring. And I hope you found this video to be helpful and interesting, and if you would consider liking this video and even subscribing to our channel, we would so appreciate that. I hope you all have a lovely weekend and a wonderful Labor Day, and I will catch up with you all next week. Bye friends!